Hi, it's Scott MacArthur. I hope you don't mind me indulging myself in a bit of Sean Connery there. Hi, and welcome to ARTEFACT. As an empathy engine, and boy, don't we need empathy more than ever today. So welcome to the show. It's great to be back. It doesn't seem like a week since we did the last one. Have to say that the last show was great, and we had people who joined us from 5 countries. And that's not including Scotland, guys. I was absolutely delighted with that. So thank you, Argentina, Australia, Spain, Portugal, and of course the UK. That was absolutely fantastic. So this week, what's been happening? Well, a couple of things have happened. One is I got a new chair. I was wobbling around so fast, so much last week that I thought at one point I was going to fall off my chair. So I have since acquired Samantha's old office chair. So hopefully there'll be less wobble. The other thing that happened, this feeling of and this need for empathy went down so well that I've actually rebanded my YouTube channel. It's always been called The Edge of Next. I hadn't really branded it as such, but it is now. And I'm quite pleased with that. And I think the trying to inspire the human and human resources is a reasonable take on where I come from. And I'm going to pop into the chat for the first time. If someone could just let me know. I'll just say hello in there myself. If you let me know if you can hear me, that would be really, really helpful. I can see there's quite a few of you here. So if somebody could just quite quickly just say hi, make sure we've got the sound working, because I have this ongoing paranoia about this. So while you're catching up with me here, sound keeps dropping out. Right, okay. Thanks for letting me know. That we can get through this without the sound failing on us again. It does tend to be LinkedIn that lets us down at the moment. It's still in beta, and you can tell, as I've said before. So anyway, this week, if it's dropping in and out, Peter, I'm taking it you can hear me a little bit. So this week, and I'll come back and check the chat in a minute because I want to make sure that that is working okay. Let me just go back to here. About how to help other people tell stories. And my bridge this week, I always have a bridge between my episodes. And my bridge this week is really where I went to halfway through last week's show, where I was talking about story storming. And this is just a very simplistic way of gathering stories and trying to remember things from my past, sort of the archaeology of my life. And I do mean this. I don't just say it and not do it. I live this stuff. And this week, I went into my probably 20 years ago past. And I've said to you before that I believe that you should record your life for a number of reasons. And this is my first artifact tonight, and I hope I don't draw. And have one of those. So that was about 1996. Then in about the year 2003, in came this guy, dictaphone. This is quite a cute one because it's got a little built-in USB. And in the last week, and because of I was giving myself advice, really saying, I need to go back and be an archaeologist of my own life. I went back and I listened to some of my old tapes, and Blyek, it was really, really interesting. And right away, I mean, I don't. There's not a tape in. I tell you what, I'll put a tape in and see if it works. It might not even work anymore, guys. I don't know. Let's have a go. Guru from Scotland. It said, "Oh, the Apollo starts." Oh gosh, when was this? Andy, if you're listening in Sydney, mate, it was July 03 that we started the website. 10 million hits later. I can't even open it. I genuinely can't open it. It's an epic fail, that, isn't it? How can I not open my own tape? So I went through the tapes, and here we go. And now I haven't tested this, so this might be a fail. In 20 years. There you go. That is me 20 years ago. And it's quite odd listening to yourself from so long ago. And I know we've all got like home movies and well, more now than we ever had, but we, home movies and ways of seeing back in the past. But when you go back that far in the past, it's quite well, how do you say it? It's quite shocking, really. And that particular tape, purely by coincidence, I listened to it, and I was talking in that tape about Jack Black. Now, Jack Black, if you haven't heard of him, he's a very sort of motivational type guy, very much in the Tony Robbins mold. He's into the sort of Carnegie stories, all the old classic self-help stuff. He's a good guy, actually. I like him a lot. And Joanne's having trouble with the sound as well. Guys, I'm not sure what to do about it because everything is running here. I'm not sure what to do. Let me just see if I can, if I do this might help. Hold on. That's annoying. Let me just double check that I've not done anything stupid, because quite often it's the problem between the keyboard and the chair. Now everything's looks okay. I'm sorry if there is a problem here. There's Joe got a comment there. Using my old data phone to record my memories this week. Brilliant. Quite often better, safer to write things on a piece of paper or to record it on a tape. And actually, it was quite difficult to get the material, and I'm now worried about remembered when David Beckham. back to that in a few seconds, because the whole idea of artifact is because I consider it to be not the truth. I think what he talks about left and right brain. He talks about things like he sends messages across countries and people draw pictures, and he does a lot of things that I would say are magical thinking, and I'm no longer particularly interested in that. Other people like it, good for them, not a problem with me, but that's just the way I feel about it now. But that brought up a subject in my head, or an idea in my head, that I think if you come with me on this journey and you do start, like Joe has done, to record things and to look at excavating about Myers-Briggs and about all these other things, where they got people to record an image of themselves looking at themselves in the past. And here's me from 2019 looking at myself from sometime a long time ago. And that young man there on the one with the skeleton, I think I've shown you that picture before, that isn't me anymore. But I wouldn't be me now without the experiences I had as that young man. And I think having empathy for yourself is actually really, really important. On their stories, and I think one of my coaches, and there's a recording coming out in the next few days with him and I having a chat, because we coach each other, and I'll not tell you the different entry points, and therefore you have to give them the time, whether they want to or not, whether if they want to develop beyond that entry point. And indeed you, Scott, were at entry points in your career as a business psychologist, as a biologist, as an HR professional, as a speaker, etc. And when you look back on that, it can be a little bit embarrassing, but give yourself a break. These entry points are part of who we are, and I think I need to get better at understanding some stories. I get quite grumpy sometimes when I think some of you have probably seen it, where I think, oh God, not another person talking about change curves or starfish or broken vases. I just, oh, but nevertheless, I need to behave myself and calm down a little bit, because that's their story in that moment, and they're at their entry point. I'm at my latest entry point. I think I need to be a bit more gentle on myself as well. But looking back, what do you think you would think about yourself if you bumped into yourself when you were 20? What do you think you'd be like? Would you like yourself? Let's have a look at the chat. Yeah, the sound is definitely not right tonight. I really apologize. I hope it's recording okay so you can watch it on playback. There's nothing I can do from this end. Let me just see if I can turn it up a bit. No, it's not going to help. Turning I just turned up the brightness rather than the sound there. That's not going to help, is it? Let me just do this. Right, I'll see if that helps. And the other thing, I'll just double check that everything is right in the instructions here, folks. Sorry about this. Right, I don't think there's anything else I can do. So if the sound is dodgy, we might need to just hope that it records properly. I will keep going. But now, is something that I think can really help you when you're trying to talk to people about their own stories. Now, I'm lucky in that I certainly for the last 15 years, I've worked as a part of that process is to help people tell their own stories. Now, if you'd asked me that a year ago, I would have said, no, I'm just helping them understand where they were at. But actually, on reflection, I was actually trying to help them tell their own stories. So I'm going to show you and demonstrate to you how I've done that with them, and I've spoken to a couple of them this week as well, just to make sure that I'm remembering things right, because as I've demonstrated with the tapes, things get foggy as you go back in time. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm hoping you can hear me. I'm going to continue until if I get told no one can hear me, then I'll stop. But so what I've done, I've tried to put together what I call a story extractor. Now, it's not like the dentist where I'm not going to come in and go, give me your stories. It's a much more gentle process than that, and it came to me. Met people from all over the world, obviously mainly from China. There's a lot of Japanese people there. There was a lot of obviously Brits and Americans, but it was a mixture of mainly Japanese, Chinese, and British. And I was given, as often happens when you work in that part of the world, I was given a mentor who his job was really to teach. And Derek was quite a cultured fella. His love was opera. Opera's massive in Beijing, absolutely massive. It's like pop stars. They're huge. And so it's a Japanese. Cynic, are you listening? So this was a long, long time ago, and this was fascinating, and I spent quite a bit. There's quite a lot of there's stories behind this story, which I won't go into, but it's a fascinating idea that they've believed in the Japanese, not the Chinese culture, the Japanese culture, that it's critical to understand the worth of your life, the value of your life. And I'm not sure that directly transfers. It probably is more akin in the Western culture to the why that Cynic talks about, or talked from other people about. But nevertheless, I found it quite interesting. So I think for me, I was talking to one of my mentees last week, and he said to me, I gave him a couple of pints of Guinness, so I loosened him up a bit. But he said to me, he said, the first thing you did, Scott, was you pushed me on, what was I trying to achieve, and what got me out of bed in the morning. So I think it ain't going to work. Do you remember that phrase? Those of you who've been tuning in every week, and I love it, and I can't find who listening is like touching at a distance. Now, I know Joy Division, there's a book about Joy Division singer called Touching at a Distance, but I don't think that's where I got it from. So if anyone knows, it's great. But isn't that a beautiful phrase? Now, scientifically, it's true. Sound waves do touch you. There is a touching part of it, but that's certainly not what I mean by using that. I think if you go into a conversation where one of your objectives is to help that person to extract them from you. So I started to take him through this process. So I talked first of all about this ikigai process. Now that can be quite a lengthy process. People, I mean, I'm not sure what that on Thursday last week. And what he said to me was, he said, "I don't think anybody understands this." And he's a very well experienced counsellor. We're getting on, Joe. Can you hear me? Have you given up? The second thing, and this is the thing that I think can really help, and it's something that we all kind of know. And of course, if you tune into this show, you know, be smell, and giving people an artifact to think about, or asking them to bring an artifact, actually really helps them. It is still cutting out, Joe. Thanks for staying. I'm sorry it's cutting out. That's really frustrating. I just, everything's plugged in and I just can't think of what else to do, I'm afraid. Don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I apologize, Joe. Um, about my grandfather some time ago, and I did do it here. I did it way. And I've asked them all to bring an artifact, and a couple of them have said, "Oh, that's quite challenging." And one of them went, "Oh yeah, great," but the others are all a bit sort of, "Oh," and I bet, and I'll ask them, hold me. So that's the second thing I would do. And remember, listening is like touching at a distance. Oh, God, I love that. Listening is like touching at a distance. I must get my artist friend David, who some of you have met, to draw that, because I think that's such a powerful phrase. As I say, I can't remember who said it, and I've never known who said it. I think I heard it on a radio show or something, but don't hold me to that either. So the second, or well, the third thing really. So you've got the ikigai, you've got the artifact. The third thing, if you're listening, folks, if you're actually paying attention to the person you're speaking to, every now and again, you should restate what they've said. You should re-express what they have said. Now that is in all the books about, active listening, and I get that. But even when you're trying to help somebody bring a story out that's embedded somewhere in their consciousness, you re-expressing them invariably, certainly my experience of doing this, invariably makes them change their story. They go, no, I didn't mean it that way, or no, that's the wrong word, or no, don't say that word. That no, I didn't say open questions to try and get them warmed up, to get them thinking about it. But I'll just pause, check the comments. Any other questions, folks? Joe's saying it was a dictaphone that she used. What did you write originally? A dataphone. My goodness, yeah. Right, okay. Okay, fine. No other questions. Well, there is a couple here, sorry. Oh, just thanks, Scott. I can hear you. Right. Funny, somebody else on YouTube can hear me, Joe. So there's obviously some odd going on here. I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so I'll remind you of the 3 phrases again. There was the Ikigai stage, which was the what gets you out of the bed in the morning. There was the bringing in the artifact phase, which is a physical, musical, smell, whatever, any type of artifact that can suddenly trigger a memory, like I did with my tape box. Then was the re-express phase. So that's your first 3 phrases. Thanks very much, Andy. Hello, Sydney. Nice to see you in again, Andy. Thanks for coming. And then the 4th part of that, and it's a part that won't surprise you, is basically to ask someone this question: how did you feel? So Andy's just joined, who's a very good friend, but my best friend, in fact. And Andy, I don't know if you heard the beginning of the show, but I was talking about my old dad. Site. Sorry guys, the Apollo website's a music website that Andy and I do together. 17 years, Andy. I even remember what I was wearing that night, and I remember what Andy said to me about how we could make it happen. So it's something that it really works. This, bringing in these artifacts. So ask them how they feel. Then how they got their first senior job and what they had to do to get it, and how hard it was, and how they met this person who'd helped them and coached them, and how they approached the interviews and how they approached the exercises. Andy's asking me to check the plugs. I think everything's in. I cannot see anything loose at all. It's so... Hold on. Right, I've that may help. I've moved the power source. Hopefully you can still hear me, everybody else. I hope that can help. It's certainly saying it's working. Yeah, it's working. So anyway, that's a pain in the neck, isn't it? Right. So I tell them what it's taught me. And I say, okay, thank you very much for sharing that story. And but at that point, again, quite often people will say, hold on, no, there's another angle on this story. There's somewhere else I need to go on this story that I had forgotten about. And off they go again. There's another part of the story. Finally, and this can take a year. I mean, it can literally take a year. Not when I'm doing my story storming type thing. That normally, that's usually stories that are quite ripe in my head. But when I'm working with people who are not as good at pulling these, extracting these stories from inside their heads, I say to them, okay, this is what I think of this story. I give them some feedback. And that can be quite difficult for some people sometimes, because obviously that's only my opinion. I could be wrong. But quite often I get asked by communicators or speakers or internal comms people, how does this story sound to you? And there's a mistake here that I think a lot of people, for some reason, they fall into this trap. They have a really good story, but it doesn't fit what they're trying to communicate. It doesn't fit what they're trying to communicate. And that means that when people are told this story, it loses its impact. It loses its impact. So sometimes I'll have to say to them, it's a good story. Let's park that one and let's mine another story. And I've seen it particularly on the training and professional speaking stage, lots of stories that do not relate to the outcome that they're claiming it does. That's just a shame. It's not a criminal mistake, but it's a shame because you lose the impact. You lose the impact that your story deserves. Now, I'll just pause for a minute. We're nearly finished, just to see if there are any other comments. Can you hear me at all, Andy and Joe in particular? It seems to be the YouTube area that's the problem. Can you hear me now that I've rebooted the system? Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully you can hear me. I'll just wait for a second. So let me just recap. While I'm waiting, I will show you that I've got a little graphic of this thing here. So this is the process that let me just take Andy's comments off there. This is the process that I have just described to you. So we start with the Ikigai process. You know, what is important to you? That is asking questions, lots of open questions, trying to get to really understand what's important to people. That can be the most difficult question of all, and not everyone will answer it. Now, is it essential for the rest of it? No. However, it can really help, because remember in week 3, I talked about being authentic. Somebody who really, really believes something, you can tell when they tell a story if they're being authentic. And the Ikigai process, you know, what is important to you, can help them with that. The second thing, and the thing that I think is pretty unique to this channel, is that I think you need to bring to the story an artifact, something that helps you enrich the story with your experience, and your memories suddenly come flooding back like you would not believe. I mean, the artifacts are just so powerful at this sort of thing. Then next up, built on that little aphorism that listening is touching at a distance, you have to ask enough questions so you get to the point that you can retell their story almost better than they can. Almost better than they can. So you're just listening so carefully to their story and their experience that you can come back almost and tell their story better than they can. And at that time, invariably, they'll go, hold on, I'm not sure if I got that right. And then you start the process again. Then we talk about, you know, how did they feel? You know, how did they feel telling that story? And it's astonishing when you hear some people who are very good storytellers on stage. They'll have told a story 100 times, 200 times, but it will still invoke an emotional response. If you've seen me talking about my grandfather's foot, I can't tell that story without it giving me goosebumps. It's very, very difficult for me to tell it without crying, to be honest. But nevertheless, it's a true story. It's an authentic story. People can tell. If you're trying to move someone, which is what we're trying to do with stories, remember, facts tell, story tell. If you're trying to move somebody, they spot the authenticity in you. So I think it's a really powerful piece to remember about how do them feel. Then I tell them, this is basically feedback. I'll tell them, you know, what that story has taught me. And at that point, I think it's quite important. Okay, where are you going to use it? How are you going to use it? And what I do, I've got, and I'm going to show you this one week. I've got a spreadsheet, and I've got over 300 stories now, and it's just bullet points. You know, it's like my pet crow, my dog called Wimpy, the day I met Billy Connolly, blah, whatever they are. But next to it, though, I've almost got a category for each one. So I'll say something like, you know, business change, relationships, you know, whatever it is, I'll have a little index. And that means that when I get asked to speak about something or do this show itself, I can quite quickly find my stories, because even though I talk about stories all the time, I even forget my own stories. This is hence why I write them down, right? So that's my process. I hope you found that interesting. It's well, you can hear me, great. Well, that's the best feedback I've had all night. I was worried about that. So that's basically tonight's show. There's a couple of things to finish, but has anyone got a question? I hope you found that useful. It's a quick little real tool, though, that you can use. And I think, again, remember how I started this when I said that stories help us to see and understand the world through the eyes of others. Yeah, they help us see their world through their eyes and through their what they're thinking and what they're saying. It's so powerful, guys. So let me just check the comments. Thanks very much. Let me just see what this is saying here. How often do you tell stories, Scott, from Anonymous? Well, I think that's a good question, that, because again, stories can be overtold, and a lot of people, particularly in the speaking world, have like a story that they tell over and over again. Works for them. It's not what I would do. I would have a range of stories that I would tell so that I can, you know, keep my own interest. Because if I get bored with my own stories, I'm not sure that would be something that I would want myself. So, you know, yeah, use them as appropriate. Just use them like a grown-up. I don't think there's anything that I can particularly add to that. And another question's about, have you any other examples? Well, I've got, do you remember this thing? You remember this thing from week 1? Those of you who are here on week 1, story cubes. Now this is for kids. Now this helped one of my clients. I mean, I can't believe it helped one of my clients, but it did. I asked him, how is his storytelling skills? He said, "Oh, I'm hopeless." But he's got kids, so I gave him this. And on this, there's all these little cubes with little, just little icons on them. And the idea is you roll 3 or 4 of these, and so I've got an alien, a house, and a fire. So I've got to think of a story about an alien, a house, and a fire, or a house on fire, and an alien pops out the chimney, something like that. But very quickly, it's a bit like, and I know Peter's here, who's a comedian. It's a bit like the brilliant skills that comedians have, who are able to, when we had an audience, Peter, when we used to, respond to an ad lib from an audience, that's a really powerful thing to be able to do. Bringing in real stories people can tell. So, I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you very much for dropping in, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, next week, I'm delighted to say I've got a special guest next week. All things being well, it's very difficult to commit these days, isn't it? But I think because we're back in lockdown, hopefully we'll be with one of the few benefits of being back in lockdown in England, that hopefully people will be more able to make these appointments. So thanks once again for joining. I've really enjoyed it. A bit shorter tonight. I'm actually finishing just on time, which is terrific. And as always, if you have any questions, and I know a couple of you have said you'd like to tell your story, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about that, and I'll be doing that in the next few days. And hopefully we'll be able to help each other extract that story from you, because telling your stories, guys, is the way we're going to change the world. Thank you very much.